The fluorescent lights of the office kitchen hummed, casting a sterile glow on the otherwise mundane scene. A half-empty box of assorted cookies sat innocently on the counter, a siren's call to the mid-afternoon slumpers. Only one remained, a double chocolate chunk, oozing with dark, decadent promise. Our protagonists, Mark and Sarah, entered the kitchen simultaneously, their eyes locking onto the prize like heat-seeking missiles. Mark, a mid-level marketing manager with a penchant for the finer things in life, namely, free office snacks, and Sarah, a sharp-witted software developer fueled by caffeine and sugar. They were about to engage in a battle of wills, a silent war fought over the last bastion of baked goodness. Mark, ever the strategist, feigned disinterest, sauntering over to the coffee machine. "Just need a little pick-me-up," he mumbled, his eyes darting back to the cookie. He filled his mug, the clatter of the machine a deliberate distraction, hoping Sarah would lose interest and retreat. Sarah, however, was not easily deterred. She casually strolled to the refrigerator, pretending to examine the contents. Maybe I'll have an apple," she mused, her tone dripping with sarcasm. In reality, she was calculating her next move, assessing the angles, and plotting her approach. The tension in the room was palpable, thick enough to spread on toast. The air crackled with unspoken challenges, with silent threats and veiled intentions. Mark took a sip of his coffee, his eyes never leaving the cookie. He leaned against the counter, adopting a pose of nonchalant ease. "Rough day, huh?" he said, his voice casual. "You have no idea," Sarah replied, her eyes narrowing. "This code is a nightmare." "Tell me about it," Mark said, seizing the opportunity. "I've been dealing with the Johnson account all day. They're driving me up the wall." He launched into a detailed, and largely fabricated, account of his day, hoping to bore Sarah into submission. But Sarah was a master of multitasking. While feigning interest in Mark's woes, she was simultaneously formulating a plan so cunning, so devious, it would make Machiavelli blush. As Mark reached the climax of his tale, complete with dramatic sighs and exaggerated gestures, Sarah made her move. With lightning speed, she grabbed a banana from the fruit bowl and hurled it across the room. It landed with a satisfying thud, narrowly missing Mark's head. "What the?" Mark exclaimed, momentarily forgetting the cookie. "Oops," Sarah said, feigning innocence. "Butterfingers." While Mark was still reeling from the banana assault, Sarah darted towards the cookie, her hand outstretched, but Mark was quicker than he looked. He lunged forward, intercepting her with a well-timed slide across the linoleum floor. "Not so fast," he said, his eyes gleaming with triumph. Sarah, undeterred, retaliated with a swift kick to his shin. "Cheap shot." Mark yelped, hopping on one foot. "All's fair in love and cookies," Sarah retorted, grabbing a handful of paper towels and launching them at Mark like a ninja star. The kitchen descended into chaos, paper towels flew, bananas rolled, and the air was thick with muttered insults and suppressed laughter. The battle raged on, escalating to ridiculous extremes. Mark, desperate to gain the upper hand, grabbed a bottle of dish soap and threatened to squirt it at Sarah. "Don't make me do this, Sarah," he warned. "I'm not afraid to use it." "You wouldn't dare." Sarah challenged, grabbing a carton of milk and brandishing it like a weapon. They stood frozen, locked in a standoff, each unwilling to back down. The tension was so thick, you could cut it with a butter knife, which, ironically, was lying forgotten on the counter next to the cookie. Suddenly, the door to the kitchen swung open, and Mrs. Higgins, the office's resident busybody, waddled in, her eyes wide with shock. "What in the world is going on here?" she shrieked, clutching her chest. Mark and Sarah froze, their faces flushed with embarrassment. They looked around at the disaster they had created, the paper towels, the bananas, the soap, the milk, and the single, solitary cookie sitting innocently on the counter. Mark stammered. "We were just cleaning," Sarah chimed in, her voice unconvincing. Mrs. Higgins narrowed her eyes. "Well, clean it up. And for goodness sake, share that cookie." With that, she turned and waddled out, leaving them to survey the wreckage of their culinary battle. They looked at each other, then at the cookie, then back at each other. A slow smile spread across Sarah's face. "You know what?" she said. "I'm not even that hungry." Mark stared at her. "You mean, all this, was for nothing. Pretty much, Sarah said, shrugging. But it was fun, right? Mark couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. He picked up the cookie, broke it in half, and offered one piece to Sarah. Truce? Truce, she agreed, taking the cookie. They stood side by side, munching on the chocolatey goodness, the tension finally dissipating. From that day forward, they shared a bond, born of office boredom, the allure of free snacks, and a shared love of competition. And whenever they saw the last cookie in the box, they'd exchange a knowing glance, a reminder of the day they went to war for a bite of sugary perfection.